I ghosted my therapist, and let me tell you why. For context, my mum passed away last year, and after I had buried her, specifically 2 weeks after, my friends basically held an intervention to kind of like go through all the things they didn't really like about me. And as fair as that was, I was obviously going through a lot at the time. But in a fast and desperate attempt to fix these things, I decided to go to therapy. I wanted to be a better friend, but my therapist would just validate me and tell me, no, you're not these things that your friends are telling you that you are, which was really hard for me to believe. I couldn't believe that. Plus the fact that I felt like I was talking to a friend in therapy, but then at the end I always had to pay. And I was like, oh yeah, this is literally someone's job. Was it wrong of me to ghost her? I don't know. I don't know if I should go back. Let me know.
So there's two things in this. I'm going to address the therapist bit towards the end, and then the friendship thing, because that can be seen as a slightly separate topic that's related. So again, she said that she went to therapy because she was told that she was a bad friend, and she felt that the therapist affirmed her behavior. She felt validated. So she was validated, right? You're not these things that the therapist, your friends tell you. And then she also said that she felt that she was talking to the friend, she was paying the money. So there was kind of like this thing of like, yeah. Okay. So let me say this. A few things. Now, this goes back to my point. Yeah. Let me give you a beautiful illustration. So let's say I go into therapy and I'm a people pleaser, and I feel like a lot of people take, I'm doing this actually because I think I'm tired. So sometimes when people are doing this, when they're speaking about traumatic or sensitive or difficult feelings or emotions, um, this is a kind of a way, it's like a soothing mechanism. You see a lot of kids with, learning difficulties use this and stuff like that. I realized that, why am I doing that? I'm talking about, but I'm tired. There's a way of kind of keeping myself awake and focused because I haven't slept much. Pardon me. So if you wonder why I'm doing that, that's the reason why. But I'll try to do it below so it's not too distracting. Okay, so if I go into therapy and I'm a people pleaser, what tends to happen is that when you go into therapy, and you begin to work on yourself, you begin to set boundaries and become, assertive with your no. The first thing is to learn how to say no, preserve your energy, only do things that benefit you. The typical things that you hear, right? I don't always give that type of advice, but that's just typical things that you hear people when they say, I looked out for myself, I put myself first. Okay, cool. What tends to happen is that person decides to go on a no spree. So everybody gets told no. Everybody, right? Now, within that person's relationship, they would have potentially some people, could be friends, family, that do not take advantage of their people pleasing abilities. And they will even have some people that have never asked them for anything, right? And let's say during the time that you were saying your no spree, they ask you for something, they reach out. And because you're on your saying no, I'm being assertive, I'm keeping my boundaries, you say no, and then that person maybe reacts. And I don't say reacts, I mean that they respond in kind by maybe just not talking to you anymore. They withdraw. Basically, the relationship changes. You're no longer what you were. Then you go to therapy, and then it's validated that you see they weren't good friends for you. Your therapist might say, well, if they don't understand this is your time and your season to say no, then they're not good friends. You're like, yeah, it's true. When actually, the way I work and some of my colleagues work is I would say, well, in your journey of saying no, is every single person around you a person that has taken advantage of your people pleasing tendencies? No, okay, it hasn't. Who is it? Is it your mom? Is it your sister? Like, let's actually name the people you feel that are a certain way. Because if not everybody is that, you need to be able to discriminate those that are using you. And some people, when I say that, I don't always mean people are doing it consciously. Yeah, a lot of things are unconscious, but you get the feeling, you're left with the feeling of being used. Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And as soon as you do it for them, they leave you, and then they come back to you again, and they leave you and come back to you. That's usually, you feel used, right? Used goods. So when you have relationships that are like that, sometimes not to that extreme, but you have elements of that. We have that sometimes with our friends, with our families, with our parents, with our siblings. If you're the caretaker and always there for people and doing all of this, but when it's your time, when it's your turn, nobody turns up for you. You end up planning your own birthday, but you plan everybody else's birthdays. hearing those examples, right? What tends to happen is that in moments when we're going through these periods of change and transition and metamorphosis, we don't look at we paint everybody with the same brush, right? A good therapist will ensure that you only are doing that to the key people that you've identified or that we together have identified. Because if you, like in my example, say turn the person down who has never asked you for anything, but this is their first time, you've got to recognize that they're going through their own thing. So now let's go to that person, the person who reached out to you, and this is the first time they've reached out to you. They don't know you're going through this metamorphosis journey of saying no. They just know that in this moment they needed you and their friend couldn't be there for them, and they have their own trauma response of being rejected. They feel like every time they ask for help they reject, so they're hyper independent, and maybe their therapist tells them, reach out to your friends, pick a few friends who you know that are supportive, that will do it. And then they choose you, they reach out to you, and you say no, then that confirms to them why they should not, they should remain by themselves. They shouldn't rely on people. They start to look at you different because they know that they've been there for you when you've asked. And the one time that you asked, are not there for them, right? But how could that have been avoided? Well, you're going through your metamorphosis. There are people in your life that don't use you. You can tell them that, guys, you guess what? I'm going through this change. I'm now saying no to people. So if you ask me something and I might say no to you, ask me again. It could just be my natural response because I'm trying to practice saying no to everybody, but I'm aware that not every single person takes advantage of me. Or you may not say that, you may not tell people that you're going through this process, but when that person asked, you would say, oh, I don't think this person has actually ever asked me. This is their first time. Wow. Okay. They were not included in the people that we identified with my therapist that, take advantage of my people pleasing abilities. So actually, let me hear the person out and think about it and then, make a decision, but at least let me not just say no indiscriminately because I'm on my no spree. I'm on my assertive, my protect my boundaries free. Let me actually see, is this a request that I can do? Is this a request coming from a place where I don't feel like I'm being pulled to do it because I want to please them? That could be totally different. And even if you still say no, you can say, girl, whoever, guy, I'm saying no only because I don't know how to say yes right now. I've gone from saying yes to everything to learning to say no. I just need a bit of balance. I'm not yet balanced. I'm going to one extreme to another. Give me a few moments. That could be days. It could be weeks. Let me just get to a point where I feel like I'm able to say yes to some and no to others. That person might still feel bad, but maybe with that context, they go to therapy and a good therapist will say, okay, well, they've explained to you, it seems that they're going through their own process. Give them grace. They've explained to you why they've said no. It's really just because they need to go through their own process right now. You can reach out to them, give them another chance and tell them that you're going to, it was really hard for you to do this, but you don't want to use that one no to stop them ever asking you for help because they understand that you're going through their process, right? The person might still feel hurt, the person might still feel rejected, but is able to understand your reasoning because you're going through your process, I'm going through mine. We will eventually meet in the middle once we get to a certain equilibrium, to a certain homeostasis. Do you understand what I'm saying? Instead, what we do have is my therapist essentially told me, no, you're not there for me because when I ask you for things, you never do it. But if you ask me, I'm always there. The same one would say, I'm tired of being people pleasing. I'm tired of giving yes, 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 and never saying no. You got to respect my no. It's my time. It's my this. Essentially, therapists are working so much in silos, yeah? And because therapy is not like the law where one lawyer, even though you're working with your lawyer in a silo, there's an overall law that you're working according to. So unless your lawyer is just a bit weird, they are within the law. Where therapy is not like that. There are different theories. There's from psychoanalysis to transactional analysis that I am, to integrative, to person-centered, to CBT, to Gestalt, to Jungian, and more. There's so many different theories that sometimes interlink and connect and then diverge, right? That the way I'm working with one client can be totally different to the way I'm working, another therapist works with another client. So at all, I'm not saying that I'm the right, but what I do hope is that therapists who listen to me, who want to become therapists and clients, please understand that when you go into therapy, right, we have to recognize that there's a world that the client goes back into and they need to you may not agree. Some people say you don't have to fit in. I don't mean fit in that way. I mean they need to function in the world. You can't create a monster. You can't create a person who is loving and caring, and then when they go out, they're standoffish because they want to protect their energy so much that they're no longer a loving and caring person. I came into therapy genuinely a happy, extroverted, ambitious woman. I was scared that that would change. I've come out of therapy a happy, extroverted, ambitious woman. But now what drives me is different. I'm not driven by this insatiable desire to prove something. I'm driven by the desire to please God. I'm not driven by the desire um from discontentment. I'm driven by wanting to serve. You know, the positions the outcome may be the same, but the reasons behind the outcomes are different. And I think that is absolutely important to ensure that when you're in therapy, your personality is not changing, but what built your personality. So the reason why you might I was very blunt back in the day, right? I don't know if I'm as blunt. People say I am sometimes, but I know I'm more surgical. Right? I went from surgical to not being blunt at all to being the opposite of blunt, which is maybe you know, to I think I'm quite surgical. I'm more considered. You know, sometimes I gotta find the line and balance between just, you know, being truthful and being honest and just saying it. And then if I say it wrong, apologize rather than saying, I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to get it wrong because I don't want to, you know, that I didn't like that when I was told I was blunt because I was hurting people. There's one time I didn't care and I was like, whatever. And I'm going to tell the truth. You can't accept the truth. The typical kind of like defense to when people are blunt. Then I start to realize that I'm hurting people and it's not nice. And yeah, I should think about being surgical.